Okay. All right. So again, if you have that, or if you have a question, type it in the chat or just ask me. Probably a lot of it I'm going to actually show. I'm a PowerPoint person. It just helps me drive what I'm trying to say for you or to you a little bit better. So I will probably be using that a fair amount. Also using different websites and things. Try to make it as real as possible, in other words. Again, some of the things we'll be talking about is the ABCs of remotely investing in land and why I think it's the easiest thing to buy, flip, or hold. There's a lot of different types of real estate out there, as you guys know, but in my opinion, and I've done most of them, in my opinion, I keep coming back to land, and I love land. You know, people ask me, why you want to invest in land? Well, there's less competition. I can tell you that a lot of investors overlook land or dismiss it. So there's not as many people. It's also, if you think about it, TV shows and things, you see flipping this house, flipping Boston, flipping whatever the show may be. But, you know, because that's sexy and cool. You don't see flipping land anywhere. That's not a TV show. So you don't have to, you know, that's not an issue. So not as many people flock to it because it's not promoted as much. Another thing, obviously no inspections or termites. If you all are involved in any housing aspect of it, you know, that can always be an issue. I don't know any house hardly that I've bid on or flipped or wholesale or whatever, that after inspections, there's issues or termites are found. You may have roof issues. You may have foundation, plumbing, electrical, or mold issues. You know, mold issues are really people run from that. The great thing about this land is you don't have any of that stuff. You don't even have tenants to worry about. So if you got a property, the rental property, you don't have to worry about it. Now, I am going to show you later on how you can owner finance. Some people do a lease option with land, but you don't have to worry about, you know, evicting a tenant or them tearing up your house. That's a great thing. This is also some of the cheapest type of real estate to buy with some of the highest profit margins. I mean, I bought properties from anywhere from 50 to $100 to, I even had one guy, after negotiations, he ended up just giving me the property. We ended up selling it for like $12,000 or $13,000. So I had nothing in it and made $12,000 or $13,000. So there's definitely some feedback to that. And you can't steal it. That's the great thing. If I have a house for sale and someone breaks in and steals the copper out of the HVAC system or whatever, that's going to cost me money. Now, if you go down to a piece of land that I've got for sale and you take a shovel and a wheelbarrow and you take a load of it, it's not going to affect the value of the dirt. You know, it doesn't cost me anything. So that's a really good thing that I do like. Another really important thing is mailers. Most of us do our marketing through mailers. It's just the easiest way to do things. And one thing I can tell you is it's a high rate of return. If you think about houses, you typically get 1% or less on multiple campaigns. That's usually mailing to the same person 1, 2, 3 times typically. I know we used to do a volley of 3 and a volley of 5. So it's a lot of money tied up in mailers. With land, I only mail one time to them. And my average rate of return is anywhere from 3 to 7%. Has been higher, occasionally lower, but the average is somewhere between 3 and 7% rate of return. And we'll look closer at that when we get to that section, and how to determine how to make sure your numbers are higher. Any questions so far?
No questions.
No.
Awesome. So what else makes land great? Well, it's profitable. There's better profit margins. I told you about the one deal. You know, with houses nowadays, what you have to deal with is, I know the housing market around here is extremely high. I mean, houses are going over ask about all the time. So if I even on a piece of junk property, I'm going to have to bid so close to the value that I'm not going to have a big profit margin, especially if I want to try wholesale it to, you know, a rehabber or something. It makes it very close. You don't have to pay 70% value to get a piece of land. I've gotten as little 10%. Usually I probably average around 20%, 25% is where my averages probably the last year or so have been in picking up property. Doesn't require a lot of maintaining. I mean, there's no, making sure if there's a leak, you don't have to worry about things like that. And you can create some passive income. And again, we'll talk about that further. I've got my business set up now with passive income with land, in that if I don't work a day this month, my business still goes. The business, bills are paid. I can still eat, and I don't have to chase that next deal. And it's really easy to do that in land, a lot easier in land than houses. And you don't have to have a bunch of money out on the street. Many times you can get whatever your down payment will cover what you're buying the property for, which is always great. And great thing about this, you can do it part-time or full-time. Most all investors I know obviously start out part-time. I started out part-time and gradually took that leap of faith and jumped in full-time, and have had no looking back at all for it. So I do like that aspect of it. You can invest anywhere in the world. I'll tell you, I'm a beach person, love going to the beach, spend a lot of time at the beach, have a place there. I literally can sit under an umbrella and buy and sell property. Actually, last year I was sitting under an umbrella, sold a piece of property, and a buddy of mine was sitting under the umbrella beside me, asked me, he said, I'm not trying to get any business. I heard you on the call. I'm like talking to some buyer. I said, yeah, we just sold a piece of property. We made about $18,000 on it. And the running joke from there was I bought dinner that night because they knew I made money. I have a business partner in a lot of my deals. He actually spends part of his year in Portugal and part of it in Uganda, and he flips land here in the U.S. So you can do it remotely, and that's the biggest thing that I love about it. You can do other types of real estate remotely, but it's a little more challenging. I can invest with more confidence in land remotely than I can houses or things like that. Next thing I want to talk about is why people let land go at deeply discounted prices. You're probably saying, Mike, people are actually letting that go at 10%, things like that. Actually, they do, which is pretty unique. They're tired of paying taxes a lot of times. A lot of them, they'll pay the taxes and they may have never even seen the property. So here's my thing with taxes though. Some people then ask me, said, well, Mike, why don't I just go after the tax lien vacant land? If that's, if they get tired of paying taxes, that is an option. But 75% of the properties that I flip have no back taxes. A lot of people will pay land taxes because typically they're not a whole lot of money unless it's a higher type of property. So if I were to go after just the tax properties, then I'm missing, 75% of my deals. So I just go after everything. Happens to have back taxes, then that's, we'll adjust with that and adjust with our offers. It's also not as emotionally attached with houses or with land. You think about it, if you offer somebody a ridiculously low price on a house and it was grandma's house, and you have insulted not only them but their family and grandma that lived there for 100 years, there's a lot more emotion attached to that house. They may have grown up as a child visiting grandmother there, but now the 40 acres across the street that they may have, they're not as emotionally attached to that. There's no house involved, that sort of thing. So people are not quite as emotionally attached to land as other things, which lets them let it go a little bit easier. I run into people all the time that they've never been to the property or never seen it. Either they've inherited it or that sort of thing, or bought it and just haven't been through it. Life changes. That's a big thing too. Finances may have changed. Maybe you're going to retire to Florida and build a house. Maybe a spouse, family member passed away, health issues has kept them from doing that dream of that property. And so they no longer need it. Their life has changed, or their life path has changed. And a lot of people don't know how to get rid of it. And I know for me, that's kind of a difficult thing to wrap my head around, because a lot of people, you and I, they're in real estate, know what worst case scenario, I'll pick up the phone and call a realtor to list it. Not everybody even knows to do that. They just don't know how to get rid of it. You know, it may be in another state and they're like, well, you know, what do I do with it? So they don't know. So that's something to think about. Questions so far? All right, great. Next thing I want to talk about, let's talk about the types of land. There's different types of land out there. Typical building lots is one that you find a lot of times, sometimes called infield lots. These are usually located in a city or a subdivision type thing. Those lots are, I actually like those lots. A lot of times they can be a little easier to compare depending on the areas or depending on the properties. But those lots are your kind of bread and butter lots, is what I kind of call them. The next kind, you got lots, or lots, acreage of passive growth, in passive growth. Things when I think about that, directions in which you know, the city or county may be expanding. I'm from the Charlotte, North Carolina area, which is Mecklenburg County. There's 5 counties that surround Mecklenburg County. All of those counties would be considered path of growth counties, because everybody is expanding out of Mecklenburg County. They don't want to pay the taxes in Mecklenburg County. Matter of fact, I'm 2 counties out and still a path of growth. So a lot of times you'll see that growth may not be there yet in the areas that you're looking, but it's headed that way. So you can get the properties at the lower price, sell them at a discount price. They're not wanting that premium price yet for them. I'll tell you a good example of a path of growth area is San Antonio and the Austin, Texas corridor. Let me check something here, show you guys. With me here. So here's a corridor thing. Bexar to Williamson County. That's the counties. That's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 counties right there that are between San Antonio and Austin, Texas. I know this because I've looked at this area. I know those 2 cities are almost growing together. So any of these counties would be path of growth areas that would be interesting to maybe pull a list and actually work. Now, as time has come about, you know, the prices are starting to creep up in these areas, but this is just another example of a path of growth area to think about. Over here. So larger acres or parcels and acreage is another thing to think about. It may be recreational property. Think about when you're thinking about properties, think about not only what you would do with it, but what someone else may be. Always be thinking outside the box, thinking of different exit strategies that may be available for that property. Could be property camp on. There's folks that like to go out on the weekends. They may take a travel trailer up there. They may want tent camp, just get off the grid type properties where they can just disconnect for the weekend. I know that sometimes that sounds really tempting for myself. Or to ride ATVs and things. Property they may want, maybe they got some buddies and things, will go in together, buy some property to ride 4-wheelers and ATVs. Or it could be hunting property. Maybe a hunting group that gets together to buy that property to hunt. Another thing's farmland. And when you think of farmland, I think of, regular farmland, like, that we, cattle and that sort of thing. But also think about tree and solar farms. Solar farms is a big thing that's coming up nowadays. More and more solar farms that's out there. And with that, they need, land to put those solar panels on. So that's something. The tree farms are something. Another thing, the recreational property, is think about the desert properties. There's people who will get 40-acre parcels in the middle of the desert. I don't quite understand it, but I've sold some of them. They just want to go off the grid. Development type property, development areas. Think of not only residential or commercial. It may be, maybe you have a large parcel, 50 acres, 60 acres. Maybe a developer may be interested in putting a subdivision in that property. So that's another exit strategy. So if you have a larger parcel of properties, it's got a lot of different exit strategies. Could be commercial development, maybe commercial stuff is headed that way. They want to put a strip center in there, whatever, store, whatever it may be that they want to put in there. That's another exit avenue. So the larger parcels actually give you more exit strategies than any of the others, because there's so much that you can do with the larger parcels. So where do you want to invest? The first thing I say is invest in areas that you like and interest you. And my example on that is you want to make sure it's still a good area. I don't like investing so much in desert property. I don't get the concept of going out there with the cactus and sand and buying property and burning up, during the day out there, freezing at night. Just not my cup of tea. I like the northeast area of the country. That's where I invest at. So I like that. So that's something to think about. The growing areas. Look at growing areas in the southeast, in the northeast, southwest, northwest. Any of those places. That's where you want to invest. Wherever something that's comfortable to you. Maybe you want to start out in your backyard, or you may want to start in just a completely different area of the country. It's totally up to you. Well, how do I know what in those areas? How do I know that it's good areas to invest in? It's just, you want to make sure it's going to be productive for you. The internet is the greatest tool. You can Google, top 50 growing counties in the U.S. Now, if you Google top 50 growing counties in the U.S. or top 100, don't pick the first 5, because other folks, that's where they're going to go, the top ones. If I pick the top 50, I could go at number 50 even and still be good. Think of how many counties are in this country. I mean, North Carolina alone has 100 counties, so I think there's 3,000 some counties in this country. So you can Google things like that. Different news shows, sometimes things pop up. Different articles, I get different things emailed to me about growth areas. Also, I can scroll through Facebook sometimes and it'll pop up, such and such area is a growing area. Different Facebook groups that I'm a part of have conversations about that. Also, REIAs, your Real Estate Investors Association places. Those type of folks can be a good source of areas that are growing. You can just go to those websites, much like, the REIA we have here, and look at things, look at, what's for sale. Is things selling there? What is it selling for? Those type of things. That's things to do, to think about. So that's where to invest. We also got to determine, how do we determine what is a good area? We know we're talking about where to invest, and we talked about a little bit about how to determine if it's a good area through, internet and things like that. But growth rate based on information gathered, that's something that you want to look at. You want to see what the growth is in that county. I know that I looked at one county years ago. It looked like a good county until I started looking at the growth data, the economic data of the county. And we're going to get into that a little bit further here shortly. But it literally had a high unemployment rate, like 20%. So nobody was buying anything there. Again, we kind of talked about the growth rate stuff on the last slide. Another thing is Zillow. If you go to Zillow, go to an area on Zillow, let me see here. Let's just do Zillow. And I'll tell you what I look at when I think of a good county. So let's look at Hillsborough County, Florida. And I'm just really pulling this out of the air. Hillsborough County, Florida, that's Tampa. But let's look at it. So one thing I want to do right here, I searched Hillsborough County, Florida. What I like to do now, if I'm looking at comps, and we'll look at that further, I only want to look at, or I'll look at about any, comps. But when I'm researching areas, I like to go down here. I like to look at the last 24 months worth of data. And here's what this tells me. So sold in Hillsborough County, there's 1,680 results that have sold in the last 24 months. Now let's see what's currently on the market. So there's 481, 35 more. So a little over 500 properties on the market. And we can see it's all around, which is good, just as the sold is all around. Again, stuff is not just in one corner. It's circulated around. I like those numbers. I always want, here's a rule of thumb. I always want my sold numbers to be as high, if not higher, than my for sale numbers. Because what this tells me is there's a demand for this land with this many being sold, and only what, a little over 500, 515 or so that's on the market. So that tells me, yes, that's a good area. Now that's a particular county that's right, Tampa's there. Let's look at Forsyth. I can spell. Forsyth County, Georgia. That's kind of a growth area for Atlanta. It's kind of a little farther out than Atlanta, up there on Lake Lanier, I believe that is. Long story short, you got about 150 properties that's for sale, sporadic around there. So it's not as many, but there's also the concentration of people is not as much. Let's look at what's sold. So there's 532 that's sold there. So that's almost, a 5-to-1 ratio, 4-to-1 ratio of properties. And again, it's all over. So that right there would tell me that's a good county. Now, I get some people ask me, so, well, what if I've got a county that has 100 for sale and 200 sold? It's double the sold. Yeah, there's 300. I want my combined number to try to be at least twice, at least 500 or more is where I want my combined number. But I use this right here as a good data source for information. I get a lot of things out of this. Next thing you want to look at when you finish looking at this aspect, we've looked at two counties. We've looked at Hillsborough County, Florida, and we've looked at Forsyth County, Georgia. I know at least the sales and for sales look good, but what about the economics of it? I like this site here. It's called datausa.io. It's just datausa.io. It's a pretty cool little site. Like, for example, let's put in Forsyth County. Right there, I can click on that. And this thing has an assortment of things that you can look at. But really what I concentrate on is this right here. And this tells me a couple things. Population's a little over 200,000. They've had a 4% growth, so that's good. The poverty rate is really low. Now on this particular site, anything below 20% I'm comfortable with. If it's above 20, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to run from it. I'm just going to look at it a little closer. I may look at some more census data and things like that. So that's something to think about. Median household income, $101,000. That's up 5.5% in year growth. And this lags about a year behind. So keep that in mind. Median property value is up a little over 6.5%, 321,000. Now keep in mind that's houses, that's everything. That's just not land. So this is a good site. This can be a good site even if you're doing houses, commercial or whatever, because you can find the economic health out of this, out of the county, just right here by this one little area. Now let's say I wanted to compare the counties. Let's say I wanted to do Hillsborough County as well. Here it is. I like this aspect of this map as it loads. Okay, great. So here we go. So we've got this this all loaded. So we know what our Forsyth numbers are. And we look over Hillsborough, obviously a higher growth rate, or lower growth rate, but a lot more people. Median age, that's important too. We didn't talk about that on the other. This is 38 and this is 37, basically the same. What I don't want to see is the median age of 25 years old or something like that. Because at that age in your life, you're probably not looking at land or things like that. Now you have to take into account if it's a college town or college county, that may skew the numbers a little bit. But somebody at this point in their life, they could be looking for that property to build their next home, things like that. Poverty rate's a lot higher here. Median household income is about half of what it is there, not quite half. Median property value is a little less. Obviously, more people. So, you know, you could ask yourself, well, which one of those is the better county? Well, either one could be good. It depends on what you want. Obviously, you're going to have more records with a county that has over 1 million people in it, almost 1.44 million people in it versus 200,000. Doesn't mean you don't want to do them both. You just choose which one you want to do first. So that's something to think about on that aspect of the of that part of it. What you want to also do is once you pull that information, you want to test your areas. You got to pull a list. You got to send a test mailer. You got to evaluate your response. And evaluating your response is seeing what that rate of return is. Are you getting 3 to 7% rate of return back? Now, your return rate may be a little bit lower in your test mailer because you're not going to mail as much. My test mailer, I tell everybody at least a 500. I mail 1,000 out to any county as a test mailer because I want to get somewhat of a decent, you know, evaluation of how things are going to go in that county. And even at that number, you know, you're just really touching the surface on some of them. So, so think about that. So I want to slide away from this a little bit, and I want to slide into first steps in creating your business. So we've got basically what we've done. We've figured out, you know, why people want to get rid of land and things like that, and we've also figured out, you know, where to invest, how to find out where to invest, and analyze that data. But before we want to mail something, we may want to look at the type of creating our business. And one thing you may want to look at, and this I thought was crazy until I did it, and it really makes sense. You may want to see what type of person you are. Are you a detail-oriented person? Are you one of those folks less detail-oriented? You just want to take the ball and run with it. Me, I'm a detail-oriented person. I want to know specifics. Small details keep me up at night, whereas somebody else, they may not sweat it. But if you're detail-oriented, you can find this stuff out on the Colby test. And it's Colby.com. If you ever want to take it, you will find out a lot about yourself. It grades on a scale. It's pretty neat, and it's very accurate. I use it as a crutch when my wife says that I'm too analytical about stuff. Sorry, honey, it's just the way I'm made. But you may want to be a detailed business plan before starting you're detail oriented. That's creating an LLC address, phone numbers, those type of things, budgets. Doesn't have to take long to create this. You can do this relatively quickly. Less detailed. You don't want to sweat the details. You're ready to get the business and going. There's nothing wrong with this approach, but at some point in time, you are going to have to create these things up here. But you may be, if you're the less detailed, you may be just wanting to pull a list and get a list out and then start working on that. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Just another avenue of how you want to look at it. Let's see what else here. What will be good is though that once you will need to have to correct, get this up and going at some point, and your accountant will appreciate once you have a proper LLC and all that stuff. Things to consider when building a real estate business. And this is land, this is anything really here. Is the creation of LLC, how to do that. Easiest way is going by the Secretary of State site. It's usually pretty easy. It depends on the state you're doing it in. I know for North Carolina, it's relatively easy. That's where mine are. And it cost me a couple $100 a year, I think, to keep it. Maybe less than a couple hundred, maybe 150 or something. Cost me about $225 or $250 to create it. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. Trust me. But you can also have your attorney or accountant create it for you if you want to. They're obviously going to charge you a fee, or there's online services out there that will create an LLC for you. So there's different avenues and different approaches to creating that, but it's relatively simple, and you can go to Secretary of State if you have a business name to make sure that business name has not been claimed by someone else or something like that. You want business street address. And one thing I say about business street address, I would not suggest using your home address just because you want to keep it separated from your home things. Some people get on the computer, start looking and say, well, that's 123 Smith Avenue. What's that? I'm looking this up. It's a house. That's not a business. There's a couple different avenues. You can go to the UPS store is one where you can go in. It has a street number and it has a box number or suite number, so to speak. That's an option. United States Postal Service, not all the branches, a lot of them will allow you to use a street address. I'll give you a prime example. Mine is 301 West Main Avenue, Unit 416, and then the city and state. So that's the way my business is set up. It sounds like a business. If you pull up the building aerial thing, it's a large post office, so it looks like an office building. But that's how I do it. It's a little bit cheaper than the UPS store, although they keep going up. But that's how I do it. Virtual mailboxes is another thing. There's different ones out there. You can Google virtual mailboxes. There's a bunch of different companies. What that does is basically it gets you a mailbox and everything goes to that particular address, and someone scans in your mail for you and you get it via email. If you want them to open something and scan it, like let's say you send out a contract to be signed and somebody signs it, they mail it back to your virtual mailbox. Well, the virtual mailbox people are going to open that for you, scan that contract to you so you have a copy of it. That's an option. And folks that are moving around a lot of people like that. Again, there's just different avenues that you can do things like that. So just think of that when you're building that. Communication. All right. So another thing you want to think about is how am I going to communicate in my business? Am I looking at, let's talk about taking seller calls first. So basically, and again, we'll get into some of the details of sending out letters and all that stuff here shortly, but I want to make sure everyone has a good foundation in their business so you're not having to run back and put those blocks under your foundation. You can have a good foundation to start with. I think that puts you in a better position with everything. Google Voice, that's a great alternative that is, costs very minimal amount of money to do. You can have a Google Voice number set up to go, to your cell phone. You can have it set up to go directly to voicemail. I've done it both ways to take calls. There's different call scripts out there that you can have, and obviously you can reach out to me anytime. I can give you guys call scripts if you're interested. CallRail is another service that allows you to have multiple numbers, because again, we're talking about seller calls right now. We've not talked about buyer calls. You kind of really want to keep those separate. You don't want them coming in on the same line. It's a little chaotic. Additional cell phone. That was one of the things that I do use in my business, is additional cell phone. With my network provider, cost me $20 more a month to have another smartphone that's, unlimited data, all that stuff. So it was cheap enough to do that, and that was my way to do it. I still have a Google number as well. Now, if you don't want to take the calls, you have options with that as well. One being Pat Live. And we can look at Pat Live. If I can spell correctly. Pat Live is one of the top ones that a lot of people think about. But now, when you think of that, Pat Live, realize that there is a cost involved. You have basic services, that sort of thing. It goes up. The standard's about $242 a month, and I've seen that go up higher. So remember, starting out, and that's 200 minutes. It's only for 200 minutes. It's not a huge amount, but starting up, you may want to start here, 75 minutes. But just think about if you have the budget and you can do that, that's always great. But I'd rather see, if budgets are tight, I'd rather see you spend that monthly income on doing a mailer and going one of the less expensive routes, to be blatantly honest. But again, that is an option. Another one is, where it's at here, is landmaster.us. I don't know how many people are familiar with this, and we'll talk about this a little bit as we go through different things. Landmaster.us, if you're looking to get into land or are in land, you're not using landmaster.us, I really, really encourage you to use it. They've got a really great service. They do a lot of things. I know Jillian, the owner of it, was actually on I don't know what you call it, some kind of a broadcast thing that we do. What's it even called? Yeah, No Fear Real Estate Show. Yeah, that's what I do. So, but we interviewed her, and I've worked with her a lot. And before I would ever recommend anybody to her, I actually sat down and talked to her in great detail. But what they can do is amazing. I mean, they've got a call center, but they can help you with buying, with selling. This is just some of their people and how it's set up. Buying, selling, they can do it all. There's just a host of things that they can do. So, they used to have a portal or a page that showed everything they did. If you want a quick, I use them for all my marketing photos. Also, I use them for all my marketing photos. I use them for my due diligence. Are they perfect? No, I don't know anybody that is, but overall they do pretty well. Again, they're a pretty good group. So I definitely, landmaster.us, I definitely would suggest that you look at them for different things. Again, they also have a answering service as well, and it's a lot cheaper than Pat Live. I've got one or two students that use them and they've been pleased with them. If you do use any of these that are you're paying for, I encourage you to call in yourself and act like you have a piece of property. You make up a dummy property, make sure they're giving you the right information. They're taking the right information from you, professional and that sort of thing, because it represents your business. I always encourage you to do that. taking buyer calls, you can use some of the same options above, but Pat Live and Landmaster, I really probably wouldn't use an answering service. I'd rather it go to my additional cell phone or one of my Google Voice numbers. And again, you can have multiple Google Voice numbers. I have a totally separate phone line for taking my buyer calls because I'm trying to sell a property. So my message is going to be different. My voicemail is going to be a little bit different. So think of that as you go with that. But again, the pros and cons of some of those, taking them yourself versus the different companies on the buy side, I would say take your own. Email is another thing. I mean, there's Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo Mail, every other kind of mail out there. Make sure you do have an email account set up so people can get hold of you. And it's easy, especially I like Google or Gmail, because like my email address is investwithmike@mlmconsulting-llc.com. Well, MLM Consulting is one of my business names, so it's part of my email. So I like that. Another thing, websites, buying websites and selling websites. The buying website can have sellers go to the website, put their property information in. And when we get to the letters, I'll show you a couple different letters that you can use for that. The cool thing about that is it cuts down on them calling you. They can put in all the information, and typically most of the websites, and I would show you ours, but I actually have ours pulled down right now. They're doing some work on it to tweak it, but it sends out an autoresponder to them once they submit, thanking them for it, that there'll be an offer coming soon. Another thing is a sell website where you're going to sell your property and you can build your buyers list. Now I'll show you one of our sell websites, just to give you an idea. So this is a sale. This is one of our sale websites. Obviously, we have properties here that's for sale. But if you notice, the most important part of this, we talk about it right here, is building your buyers list. Buyers lists are huge, and we'll talk more in depth later on about buyers lists. But right here, somebody's got to give me their name, their email address, and they can be put on to get notified before the properties even hit our website. It's a great thing. I use MailChimp to blast out my property things. And it's pretty simple. It's usually, hey, we got a new property in this area. Go to deltalanddeals.net / whatever that property may be. And they can go to it. So this is just another way to help build your buyers list. Not only this way, but people that call in about the property, they may not buy that particular property, but find out what they're looking for and that sort of thing. And you can continue to build your buyers list that way as well. You just want to continue. Any way you can get buyers is great. So think about that aspect of that. We are. So right now we've covered, why to choose land, how and why you get the deals on land, identifying good areas, and creating your own business. Now let's talk about how you're going to get this list. How are you going to get a mailing list? I've talked about where I want. I've looked at the data. I've determined where I want to mail. So how am I going to do that? There's a couple different things. Determining your list source. County list is one option. You can contact the county. Sometimes you have to contact the GIS department, but usually the assessor's office can help you. Basically what you're wanting a list of all vacant land in that county. And on that list, you'd like them to include obviously the owner's name, mailing address, property APN, and any property details. And it's usually a standard list or spreadsheet that they can send out. You really want it in spreadsheet format. That's the easiest. And and that aspect. Another thing is Agent Pro 247. So Agent Pro, this is Agent Pro. I don't know how many people has used Agent Pro, but this is let's say we're gonna do, let's do Florida again. Let's do Hillsborough County again. Okay, been logged out. Log back in. Again, I'm gonna do Florida, Hillsborough County. Right there. All right. So what am I looking for in Agent Pro? I like to use Agent Pro sometimes, not necessarily for my full list, but if you're testing the market, it can be a good test market or a good site to pull quick things for test sites. So one thing you want to look at first, it's got to be one of these three types of things that you're looking for. Property type. Well, let's look at residential vacant land. Look at count only. I do that, I get over 5,000 names. So I'm on the right thing. And I say that, and it can only be one of these three. Now it could be county use too, but it's so broken down. Vacant residential, that could be one. Who our numbers are. 5,000, same thing. So we're on the right track. And if I have to break it down, I'd rather have residential than commercial. So I've got that part broken down. Well, if I'm going to mail a list, the first thing I want to do, my test mailer, I'm going to start with out of state folks first. So the owner type, I may want to go to owner occupancy, go up here and click out of state. Now the owner type, this little gray box with the 3 dots in it, if you press that, it pops up everything. You can do all, trust, corporate owned. What I like to do is I like to click corporate owned and exclude them. I'm not necessarily interested in the businesses as much. I leave the trusts in there because sometimes you can do rather good with the trust. And I can click OK with that. So I've got vacant residential land, I got out of state owners, and no corporations. If I click count only, look, that brought that list down from 5,000 to 745. Now, if I want to view those records, I can look at them and see different things. Now, one thing you can notice, these, Willie Johnson owns a couple different pieces of property. I may not want to get both of these. I may just want to get one because I don't need to mail Willie, 1, 2, 3, 4, however many properties he owns. I only need to mail him one time. He can tell me about the rest of them if he's really ready to sell it. This is the property address. This is not the mailing address. They're not going to show you that because then you wouldn't buy the list. Now, I don't have a subscription to Agent Pro. What I do have is I buy a la carte, and it costs me about 5 or 6 cents a lead. Now, typically now, I've got a VA that does stuff. So most of the time I'm going through the county list. It's by far the better list of everything. That's your cream of crop list. But sometimes it can be a little challenging to get it. If you want a quick list, this is a good way to do it. Again, it's about 5 or 6 cents a lead. So, if I'm doing 1,000 leads, I'm looking at what, $50 for it. And, I can come down here. One thing I do want to talk to you about, you got value. If you want to assess value, that sort of thing. If I always choose market value because I like market value more than assess value. Because the property may have a market value of 50,000, but they're only assessing taxes at a $20,000 rate. So I can miss that. So if I wanted to do 10,000 and you don't want to put any commas in there, the $150,000 properties, then I could click count only again. That drops it to 613. So that's that, obviously I can't, or that brings it down a little bit. So that's that's good ways of narrowing down. And if you've got a really large list, that's ways of narrowing things down. So I just wanted to show you that. I want to spend a huge amount of time on it, but show you that that is an option also. When you get to thinking about ways to look at lists. Title companies can be a great source for lists also. And what you want to decide is not all states are title. States either close by attorney, real estate attorneys, or by title companies. Some close by both. For example, North Carolina is a real estate attorney close type state. So I have to have a real estate attorney close the deals if I'm not closing them myself. Whereas Florida is a title company state. I've got a couple county or a couple title companies in Florida that will actually, because we've done enough business now, they can pull a list for me. Some of them, not all of them will, but some of them. What I would just let them know you're an investor and you're looking to invest in land in that area, and that you would use them as a closing agent, and see again if they can get that same information that you asked for in the county list. See if they can do that. A lot of times they'll pull that list and not even charge you because they want your business on the back end. So that's another source to go to. Title companies can give you a lot of good information. And also, you know, as the more you build that relationship with them, the better forthcoming on other information or trends they may know about and that sort of thing. Other list sources, there's tons out there. I mean, it just depends on what you want to do. There's tons of different list source companies out there that will do it. So think about those avenues. But again, the county list is probably the best, most thorough. And I do encourage you, if you do let's say you do a test run with the Agent Pro and you determine, yeah, I'm really going to get into this county. My test numbers, my 1,000-piece test mailer looks pretty good. I want to go further. Then I may pull a county list and get everything, get it cleaned up. That we'll talk about ways to clean lists and that sort of thing. But that would be the best option on that. Now, how do I clean my list? Well, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can clean it yourself. That's definitely one thing that you can do. You can have someone else clean it. And when I say, you know, someone else clean it, who's that going to be? Well, that's going to be a friend, a relative, virtual assistant. I have a virtual assistant that does it. Landmaster.us that we talked about earlier, they will clean the list for you. And I've got specific directions I give my VA to clean it, and he just goes by that and arranges it the way I want to. That's a good way. If you're good with spreadsheets, you can clean it yourself relatively easy. I just don't, my schedule's tight, so I don't have time to do it. And secondly, I would end up throwing my computer. Key cleaning topics. You want to split businesses from individuals and trusts. That's if you get a county list, out-of-state versus in-state owners. And if you think about the removal of some in-state owners, what do I mean by that? Well, here's what I mean. I will mail in-state owners of a property. Let's say Forsyth County, Georgia. Let's use that one, for example. We've been picking on Hillsborough a little bit. So Forsyth County, I mailed out of state. There wasn't a whole lot. I need to come in state. I will mail anybody in the state of Georgia that owns property in Forsyth County, except people that live in Forsyth County. And the reason that I typically take them out of the equation is I don't want Billy Bob sitting on his front porch looking across the street at strange folks walking on a piece of property he's supposed to be selling to me. That draws up flags for him. It puts your potential buyer in direct contact with your seller, things like that. So I try to keep them at least a county away. Now, they may not be that very far away. I own county in the next county over, and I'm not, 5 miles from it. But it keeps them from being across the street. So that's, removal of some of those in-state owners. And you can sort that through zip code. Zip code sorting is the best. If your county has 3 different zip codes, say Forsyth County, I don't know how many they got. Say they have 3 different zip codes. Well, I can take those 3 zip codes, do my list in numeric order with the zip codes, and move out, boxes or chunks of those zip codes that fall into that category, and it removes everybody there. You can also do value sorting if you want to. If you got really, really big list, maybe you want to target properties from 10,000 to 50,000 first, and then 50,001 to 100,000, that sort of thing. There's different ways to clean it, but that's just some of the ways that you can clean your list. So I got a list. So what am I mailing? I got my list clean. Now what I do? Well, what am I mailing? Do you want to use a mail house, or do you want to use yourself? Let's go back to what am I mailing? A couple things here I can show you. So here's the neutral layer that my company uses. And this is one without a website. So let's say you don't have a buying website where somebody can go and input their data about the property you want to sell on your website. That's okay if you don't have that. You can do this layer. If you notice, mine it's got those funky things because I use letterpreen.net to do my mailers, and that's just the way it needs to be set up for them to do it. But if you notice, property APN, that's what we look at properties by, and any others you may own. So I'm not having to mail them on every single property. My first paragraph is pretty simple. I'm writing you because public records show you're the owner of a property in such and Forsyth County, Georgia. Interested in purchasing your property and any others you may own. Now, what I want to do on next is I want to personalize this a little bit. I want it to be business, but I want to put a little personalization to it. Here, we're a family-owned real estate business based just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. Specialized, and it doesn't matter if I'm buying properties in Arizona. They still know where I'm located. That doesn't matter. I don't have to be in their backyard. We specialize in helping others that have properties they no longer need or want. We have a unique process that makes selling your property painless and hassle-free. With years of experience, we pride ourselves on creating a winning solution for you, the seller. And then I go in, if you're considered selling your property, we're actively looking in your area. I can offer you a fast, trouble-free sale, and we pay all of closing costs. We have a highly satisfied customers who were glad to have cash rather than the burden of property ownership. What I'm trying to show here is, look, you can have cash for this property. Many of these customers have plans for their property when they initially purchased it, but with time, these plans changed, and now the property has become unwanted obligation. We talked about that, why people sell, and sometimes it's because the life changes. I invite you to call our office directly, and that's one of the numbers in my office. If we do not answer, it means we're on another line helping out with another seller. Please leave your name, number, county the property is located in, and the APN number, which is here. I put that APN number here again because when they're calling, they're looking at this number. I want them to reference this number, this APN number. That doesn't always happen, but it's there in case it will happen. As long as I can get some information, I can do something. We'll call you back or directly send out an offer for your property for review. This gets me out of having to call them back. I may call them back to get more information, but I don't have to. In addition, education is important to me. I'm always available to help answer any real estate questions. At the end down here, I've got PS. If you aren't ready to sell today, please keep my letter for the future. You never know when you may need to contact a ready and willing buyer. Basically, hey, you may not want to buy it today, you may or want to sell it today, you may later on. That happens. I've had them call me, a couple months later and say, yeah, I'm ready to do sell my property now. Now this is the same letter, only this adds the sense. For more information about myself and our company, please visit whatever your website. You can also submit your property review right on the website if you prefer. Just another option. If they don't want to call in, they can do it online. Sometimes they like that aspect and an avenue to do that. So mail house versus mailing yourself. I mentioned or alluded earlier that I use letterpreen.net, which is ITI direct mail. I like them because they can send a first class letter with a real stamp on it, non-windowed envelope. I don't like the window envelopes, for about 72 cents a piece if I'm sending at least 600 or 700. That's their break point. If I send it bulk mail rate, I can get that down to about 55 cents a letter. If I'm mailing it myself, I can do bulk mail too. It's just a lot of hassle. I've got to keep up my printer, my ink, the time of stuffing envelopes. It may be something you want to do in the beginning. It's totally up to you. But most folks, most of my students, even the ones that do it themselves, that's the first thing they'll start automating as quick as they start doing deals. We talked about how large of a mailer. Well, we want to do an initial test mailer we talked about. My test mailer is 1,000 letters at least. I encourage you to at least a very, very minimum do 500 to county. And what you're doing with a test mailer is basically you're sending that out there to see what kind of feedback you're going to get on it, and that sort of thing. That's what you want to see what you can get on that mailer. So now, after you do a test mailer and it's good, what's an average mailer? People ask me that, well, what's the average mailer you do? Well, it's whatever you can handle. Some people do 2,000 mailers a month. Some people do 10,000 mailers a month. I don't encourage you to do 10,000 to start with. I encourage you to do a couple thousand maybe. See how the phone is ringing. When the phone starts slowing down is when you need to get the other mailer out, because what you don't want to do is have a lull in your business. You want to keep the phone ringing all the time. Do the amount that you can handle. You can do multiple mailers if you want to. That's an option. It's however many that you really want to do that works for you. So that's what I would look at. See what else I've got here. Bear with me 1 second. Yeah, so we'll talk about this also. This is about the last thing I think we probably talk about here. What else we've got here? Yeah, we'll talk about responding to seller leads and leave it off there. So we can just look at that. It's like the responding to seller calls. What do I ask for? Create a question guide. There's a bunch out there. Here's a call center question guide. This is something either you do yourself if you're taking the calls and you call them back, or you take the call initially, or this is a list that you can give to the call center and have them do it. It's basically you want to verify, the name of the caller, property ID or reference number. That's typically the APN number, phone number, APN down here, address, county properties in, owner if it's different from the caller. You get that sometimes. Somebody's son or daughter may call if it's an elderly parent that has a property they want to sell. So you get that. What's the size of the property? How many acres? Road access. Is it paved or unpaved? That's important because sometimes you get properties. It's kind of tough to tell even on satellite sometimes. Big important question is power readily available? How about water and electricity? Is there city or county water and sewer on the property, or is that something that I'm going to have to, have a well and septic system? What's it zoned? Is it residential? Do you owe back taxes? This is one question sometimes I ask, value the property owner thinks it's worth. And I have this list. Basically, I have this piece of paper in front of me, and I'm just carrying on a conversation with them, and I may scribble all over this paper. So it could be anywhere. Make sure. Sorry about that. that you were actually seeing the right thing. So what's the property zone, value of the property? Do you have any additional properties, things like that? That's a little bit longer version. There is a shorter version to that. It's still got the basic questions to it. Basically, as the more you do this, once you get an APN number, you're good to go. You don't have to have all this other stuff. You can take it and run with it. So that's something to think about. Let's see here. Let's go back to here. So we talked about the questions. Respond to the seller online leads. You can do manual response or auto responses. Like I said, most of your websites will do an auto responder to them. You can incorporate that question guide into when they're submitting those properties to you. They can submit those same answers to you, so you have that once they do that online. So there's two different ways of responding to seller leads depending on how your business is set up. Now, I want to hold off for determining property values to our next session. One thing I will say, if you want a free strategy with me and a 30-day action plan, you're looking at starting a business, or you got your plan your business started, and you want to jumpstart your business or grow it to another level, go to startinvestingwithmike.com. It's free. We'll give you a live thing with myself or one of my team members. We'll get on the phone with you and kind of go over what your business plan is now, what you could do to improve, and kind of give you kind of a 30-day action plan to jumpstart your business. Again, go to that website if you're interested in that. You're not, I understand, doesn't hurt my feelings, but it's just a way to help you jumpstart your land business or whatever your real estate business is, but especially land, get you where you need to go. There may be a form that you're missing, and we discover that in our conversation. We'll send you that form just free. We're not trying to, hold you over on anything. So that's part of what we're doing. You guys all on here. Questions? Does anybody have any questions so far? Was this helpful to folks?
Yes, it was helpful. Mike, I'm calling you Mike. Your name is Michael. I'm sorry.
It's Mike. You can call me Mike. It's just
okay.
On that. I've been
I'm so used to it because I have a brother, his name is Michael, and sometimes I go in between. But the one of the sites that you mentioned, was at letterframe.com? Or was it Letterprime?
Letterprinting.net. Yeah, or ITI direct mail. Yeah, that's who does my mailers for me. The one thing I really like about them, their customer service is really great. And I like that aspect of it. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. I have a second question.
Okay.
When you were on datausa.io, you had mentioned that something about combined numbers. You like for the numbers to be combined. And I was trying to write it down as quick as possible, but I kind of missed it. So what were you referring to when you said combined numbers?
So Data USA, I'm looking at more of I want my poverty rate below 20%. My numbers, which was on the Zillow site, is I want there have been at least a total of 500 more properties bought and properties sold within the last 2 years. Doesn't have to be each, but at least together.
Okay, and sold within 3. Okay.
And that way, if I've got 500 properties like that, then that shows me that there's at least enough activity that may warrant a mailer. If there's only 100 sold, 150 for sale, something like that, there's not enough activity that's going to really draw me to work that county.
Okay. And is there a lot of paperwork in terms of contracts in order to that is interchanged between parties? Like, I know when you sell a regular house, like on the retail market, there's like 10,000 documents.
No, My name of my game is keep it simple. I like to keep everything. Everything's is usually a page document or two at best, and it's very
Okay.
it's protected. It protects you, the investor, and that's both on the buying and the selling side aspect of it. So yeah, the paperwork's not bad at all. We've redone paper. Matter of fact, we redid paperwork this year to simplify and condense down some things again with even our own program stuff.
Oh, okay. One last question. I just thought
Yeah.
about it. I heard you say that you utilize VAs or you have a VA. I mean, what does your team look like?
It depends on what month you're looking at. Nah, I have a couple VAs. I don't have just one VA, and here's my reason for that. If he, God forbid, walks out of his office and gets run over by a truck, I don't have anybody that my business stops.
Right.
I have a couple if he resigns or goes somewhere else. So I have one VA that he does my photos and he does my due diligence. I have another VA that handles calls and things like that. And the other VA also kind of keeps me in line. He's almost like a personal assistant. So those are things that have been very helpful, splitting that out. Now I talk about landmaster.us and I don't promote them because I get anything out of it. They're just, Jillian, the owner of that company, has done a really good job over the years improving it. Need some improvement and they continue to improve. And if there is a problem, they work very hard to fix it. They can do anything. So like if I have a unique thing, I don't want to pay an abstractor maybe to do a title search because
Right.
it's simple. I may go to them and have one of their VAs do it. And they charge me about $4 an hour, $4 or $5 an hour.
Oh, okay. So for what you having two VAs there, what split 4 hours a piece, or are you running them full time?
It just depends. It varies weekly. I probably have a VA that's probably do about 10 to 20 hours a week between them both.
Okay.
Quite frankly, that's the thing about the land business. If I took, obviously I teach land and things like that. If I that aspect out of my business life, I probably only spend 20, 25 hours a week on my land business. And we did 60 plus deals last year.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it doesn't take a huge amount of time. It's once you get your machine oiled and greased and set up to where it's almost running itself. You don't want to run itself too much. I've done it before and had to take back over. But things, you want to focus your time on the important tasks.
Right, right. Okay, well, thank you. That was very helpful. I'm definitely going to be reaching out in order to get more information because I would really like that free consultation to see if that's something that I can incorporate into my business.
Do that. Like I said, a lot of times I'm on those calls as well. If I'm at all possible, I like to be on just because I want to be involved in folks too. So definitely set up and we'll get you on it.
Okay, thank you so much. The presentation was great. Fantastic. Thank
you. Thank you. We'll go into a lot deeper stuff next month on it.
Okay, so you just once a month, not once a week?
It's once a month. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I gotta wait another month?
You gotta wait a month. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I have a couple questions. This is Angela.
Okay.
My first one is, what is the average salary for a VA?
My VA, I've got one VA that I pay $3 an hour for, but here's what he do. He works for that, but every quarter I look at what the business has done, or my accountant tells me what my business has done, and I usually pay a bonus on that. I keep in mind my VAs, most of them are in the Philippines. Pay them a $25 or a $50 bonus. And that's like a lot more money here. And it'd be like, so yeah, it's anywhere from $3 to $7 is where I'm at. And the only reason I got the one for $3 is because we do have a set bonus program where he makes more money.
Okay. All right. And then my second question is, do you know what your ROI is for response? I think you said earlier, if you send out 1,000, you get a 7% response. Do you have it down to a science where you know that if you send out 1,000, you're going to get that 7% response? And what will be the actual sale amount?
So what I'll give you the kind of the Cliff Note version of that. So I look at anywhere from a 3 to 7% response rate being average. If I get 3%, I'm elated because that's good. Now that breaks down into me making offers. Typically, and this is just a conservative number because there's no true scientific number I can put on it, but on average, if you make 50 offers, about offers, you should get at least one under contract, maybe more. I say that conservatively. You may make 10 offers and get 2 under contract, but I would rather give you a larger number like that than, you know, hype you up on some fabricated number.
Yeah, that's understandable. Oh, I lost my thought there. Anyway, the presentation was really good. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. When you do the next month's presentation, it's going to be on the same subject or a different
subject? We're just going to go deeper into it. I know we're going to start talking about how to analyze these properties, how to put contracts together, those types.
All right. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Hi, Mike, this is REI. When is the recording going to be available? I wasn't able to catch every single part of the presentation, so I need to go back.
Give them a couple days. I think Stacy told me it takes a couple days for it to get up, but keep looking back in those replay areas on your member site, and it should be up there relatively quickly. They're pretty quick at everything they're doing, so it shouldn't be long. And again, if you're interested in that one thing, you can reach out and book a call, and anything you miss, me or my team member can help you with too.
Yeah, I'll definitely schedule a consultation because I'm thinking about adding this to what I'm doing right now in real estate. So yeah,
Awesome.
I have another question again. How do you find infill lots? I mean, I know where they are and I know what they are, but infill lots and trailer parks and how do you find those?
Here's the way I do it. Now, occasionally I'll do directed mail campaigns and things, but I like the shotgun effect. If I'm working, I just shoot it out for whatever, and whoever responds, that's what I deal with.
But do you have to, when you're looking for, because I've pulled lists and sent mailings out, but none of them describe anything as an infill lot or a construction site or.
Yeah, a lot of them won't. We think of infill lots also. People use that term incorrectly a lot of times. Even I probably do sometimes. Think about even like an established neighborhood that may a vacant lot beside it. Prime example, my neighborhood, that it's been built out for a little bit. Vacant lot in there. That would probably be considered an infill lot. It was vacant. I wanted to buy it and couldn't buy it. Somebody else ended up buying it and build a house on it now. But that would be an example of that as well.
Okay, so I did find a piece of land like that. A house had been on it, but it burned down. And I talked to several people at the city level, and they would not sell it to me.
Yeah, it just sometimes those get a little quirky. I've had properties like that. They get a little quirky. Also, you want to check with like the not the zoning, but the code enforcement to make sure they haven't assessed penalties on it because of the house fire or whatever.
Okay. All right, thanks.
You're quite welcome. Anybody else? If not, I really appreciate you all jumping on, and I hope that you all enjoyed it. Like I said, next week we're going to start analyzing properties and things like that, determining property values, looking at contracts, looking at offers, looking at dealing with buyers and things like that. So we'll get another in-depth training next week. Again, thank you again. If I can do anything, please don't hesitate to reach out.
I have one question before you go, Mike.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Eric, and I submitted the question before via email. And maybe for next week that I can give you the information, but it's a 3.4 acre lot in the mountains, North Georgia, near Clayton, 10 miles from Clayton, and 2 miles from Lake Burton. So I am trying to see what to do with it. I bought it on a rough, and it's so if I can generate income, it would be tax free, or
Right.
just selling it. So how do you value a property? How do you maximize the value? Maybe this for next class. I mean, I can give you the
Yeah,
actual.
remind me next time, but here's a short answer to that. Look to see how much of the property is usable. One thing to do, you may, if it's in an area, not all properties are for this, you may want to subdivide that property. I have an investor buddy of mine, he does a lot of subdividing of property, and you can increase your, the value of that property substantially if you subdivide it into different building lots. So that's something to think about as well with it.
Oh, okay. I had never considered that.
Yeah. Think about that. That's an option.
Okay.
Again,
But,
how much of the
normally,
property.
and is there any point to increase value by putting solar or?
Short of doing something like that, if you've got it under the right, contract at a good price, I would just market it as it is. Think about outside the box of what somebody could use it for. That's a great size property. I don't have 3.4 acres. That's like a prime size piece of property that I'd like to have my next house on is, about 3 acres. So that's something to think about. As a marketing tool, just that, perfect place to.
Okay, I love you. We'll prepare for next week.
Okay, sounds good. All right, if there's nothing else, I will see you all next month. I think it's March 8th. Put it on your calendars and I'll see you guys then. Take care.
All right. Good night.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Night.
Thanks. Bye.